Now, political analyst Khanyi Magubane says the instances of police brutality are not comparable. She now joins us on the line to discuss further. Khanyi, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's just look at the incidents. Obviously, the death of George Floyd, perhaps even the global protests that have sparked as a result. And then let's compare to the case of Collins Khoza, of course, passed away on Good Friday at the hands of Sandif and SAPSA, perhaps also standing by. Walk us through the two isolated incidents. I mean, in your opinion, you say that these are not comparable. How so?
Thank you very much, Liezle. Very much so. I think that I want to start domestically and just start with the Collins Khoza case. We do know that the SANDF, the police service, and the Metro Police Service were accused of being very heavy-handed right from the start of the lockdown in a bid to get citizens to comply to new regulations that had been set out by the government. We saw widespread accusations of Metro Police using excessive force, and currently we have over 300 cases, mostly of assault and even deaths, fatalities, of which Collins Khoza was one of them. Now, I think there's a lot of confusion around whether the final report that's been released by the inquiry into whether there was a direct link between Collins Khoza's injuries and death, because we know that Defense Minister was hauled before the Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Defense, where she said, in her view, that the report is not final because the Board of Inquiry had not fulfilled its full terms of reference. However, her office came back and said that the matter is final. You know, they will not be reopening this. And this, of course, comes on the back of the Khoza family winning their case in the Joburg High Court, which stated that an inquiry needed to be opened. And so as the ANC is launching its anti-racism campaign, it's two-pronged. You know, people are focusing on the George Floyd and the anti-racism campaigns that are happening in the U.S. to say that the ANC is only focusing on those. But I took the time to actually read the whole statement, which has been released by the Alliance Secretariat, which includes secretaries of the Tripartite Alliance. And in it is a section that actually talks to the fact that South Africa in itself would have never dismantled apartheid without international solidarity. So the reason why I'm saying the two are really not comparable is that on the one hand, we have a serious domestic issue of South Africans dying at the hands of police brutality, with the Collins Khoza case, of course, being at the forefront. But we also have issues of international solidarity. African American communities fought hard in the streets in the 70s, in the 80s, against apartheid, against the dismantling of our system, even as they also dealt with their own domestic issues of institutional racism. And so the world cannot keep quiet, neither can South Africa. So when the ANC supports an international movement like Black Lives Matter, it's not that they're saying that South African lives don't matter. It's that they are joining an international call for America, which has decades and decades of institutional racism. We know the civil rights movement has been there. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, KK. I mean, the list is long of America's never-ending racial inequality. So it's important for us to really be able to place the two, to say what is happening on the one side, why is the ANC involving itself in international issues, but at the same time, are they putting the same energy, you know, in their own domestic issues? That's where the main point of contention is.
Khanyi, my question just goes back to how the ANC may be acting a little too late, considering that the rest of the world is reacting to hashtag Black Lives Matter. Now the ANC wants to jump into it right now. Isn't it a bit too late for the ANC to play as if they care? I mean, if you look at what happened to Collins Khoza, it happened in the first few weeks of lockdown, and we didn't have so much outrage from the ANC, let alone a statement to apologize.
I think, Jacob, that's where the biggest point of contention is can people trust the sudden reaction? And I think the sudden reaction comes off the back of a lot of the citizens of South Africa accusing them of not taking the same hard action as they are taking towards the George Floyd issue. I think it's gaining momentum. I don't necessarily think that they are too late. I think it's only gaining momentum now because ordinary South Africans are putting pressure on political organizations not to just gloss over the issue of the value of South African life. The SANDF has a responsibility to open that inquiry again. As much as they've said that it's final, I don't think so, because you're hearing what the president is saying, you're hearing what the ANC is saying, and for all intents and purposes, they're fighting against themselves because it's ANC employees who are in the SANDF. They are the ruling party. Nosiviwe Mapisa Nqakula comes from the ANC. So if the ANC is coming out and saying enough with police brutality, they are the very ones who are in the seat of power and who have the ability to do something about it.
Khanyi, I just want to go back to your initial point about the police brutality instances not being comparable. I mean, if we just look at the evolution of the hashtag Black Lives Matter, I mean, apart from opposing institutional racism, I mean, a large point that is made is about the police brutality at large, which obviously has been seen in both the United States of America as well as in South Africa, if we're going to relate to the case of Collins Khoza. Ultimately, and I mean, the president was quoted as saying, it is about human worth and the life of the victim at large. So just what are your thoughts, on that counter-argument?
The counter-argument is that police brutality in the state is racially motivated, right? We know that, we can go back to Trayvon Martin, we can go back to Amadou Diallo, who was shot 41 times by the police in America. I mean, we can list the incidents. There's been a clear racial profiling and racial intention. The police brutality that we've seen in South Africa is not so much racially motivated, as in it's a black-on-black violence, as in I'm shooting you because you're black, because you're sitting in your house. I think it has to do with systematic violence that we are exposed to. South Africa is a violent society. Our police, in meeting out, I don't know what the words to call it, but compliance, perhaps, enforcing citizens to compliance, they went back to a default setting of meeting out violence. And we have, a history of violence in this country. And so the two police brutality cases, for me, in my opinion, are very different. And we cannot just lump them together under one umbrella and say police brutality is the common denominator between the two. Yes, it's police brutality in both cases, but what are the motivating factors behind it? That's what I'm interested, in really unpacking, because for me, they are not the same.
Khanyi, my final question quickly before we let you go is simply about taking action against these authorities, these SANDF members or these Metro Police cops or even normal SAPS officials. Why is it that it seems as though nothing came out of it when it initially happened, but now that something's happening in the US, it seems as though now the president is promising that tough action will be taken? Can we expect the likes of IPID to also come in here and tell us about, or at least give us updates on how the investigation has been going?
Absolutely. I think we will start seeing more of a coordinated response, especially given that the president has sworn that he's not going to leave any stone unturned. And I think you are right. It is sad that this issue is only gaining momentum now, given the wave of protest in the U.S. The Andrew Statanas of this world, if you remember Vicksburg a number of years ago, the man who died, live on camera when he was touted by police, those issues should have angered us. The Collins Khoza issues should have angered us as much as they have angered us towards George Floyd. I myself have come under a lot of fire on Twitter, over posts that I've put, saying that what we are seeing is similar to apartheid times. And I do believe that the SANDF is going to be under pressure. Watch in the next few weeks, they're going to do a very fast turnaround to say that this inquiry is open again. There was a misunderstanding. We're going to see a lot of backpedaling happening. But in essence, I do believe that the Collins Khoza family, if anything, because of public pressure, will finally get the justice that they seek.
All right, Khanyi Magubane, always a pleasure chatting to you. We've run out of time. I mean, there's also the issue of classism that exists right here in South Africa as well as in the United States. But this conversation continues again. Khanyi Magubane, political analyst, weighing in on the launch of the ANC's anti-racism campaign. Again, thank you to her for her time.